Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Only Podcast. It's been a couple weeks. My name is Chris Vanini. I'm your host, and I'm joined by Austin Smith, co-managing editor of The Only Color. So, yeah, we were off for a week or two because there wasn't much going on, and there weren't many games being played, but a lot's happened since the last time we had one of these podcasts. Most notably, I got a new headset, so hopefully I sound clearer through this new headset I have. Austin, how you doing?
Good, man. Home for the holidays. Been home for a couple, I don't know, probably almost a week now, and be back for a little bit longer. So nice to see the family and, take in some of these ridiculous bowl games and basically just binge on college sports. So it's been pretty good. Overall, I can't complain a whole lot.
Yeah, so we got we're going to hit a few things here. We'll start talking with MSU hoops, obviously. I don't think there's any football news that we need to talk about. MSU football news. We'll talk a little bit about the idea of bowl games a little bit, I guess, and players sitting out and all that stuff. And if we have time at the end, some Christmas stuff. Biggest news is Michigan State losing at home at the Breslin Center to Northeastern earlier this week in a game that, you kind of felt was coming maybe with some of the performances against Oral Roberts, against Florida Gulf Coast, against Tennessee Tech. They were playing with fire for a little bit there. And before we get into the Oakland game, they got burned against Northeastern. Austin, what were your, thoughts coming out of that game?
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. You can only play with fire for so long before it just comes back to bite you and you get burnt. I think that game was sort of the perfect storm. I mean, and it's funny because I wrote the preview for that game, and so many of the things that I was worried about going into it, the more and more I read about Northeastern, the more worried I got about them. And so many of the things I wrote in the preview just came to fruition, all for the worse. Their two of their three best players are basically like stretch fours, which is the one thing that MSU, as currently constructed, pretty much has no answer for. Let me see if I can pull up I don't know if I have the box score here, but
I got Murphy had
Murphy was the one.
18 points, 6 rebounds.
Yeah, and he was a kid who played at Duke and Florida. Like, this is his third school.
Yeah.
He's not shy. Like, he's not unfamiliar with the big high pressure pack scene. And he's 6'9", 6'10", and stroked a couple threes, hit a couple backbreakers down the stretch. And that's just a position that, with Miles Bridges, this team can at least – I mean, he's athletic enough defensively to hang with just about anybody who's going to play the stretch four spot, and even some of the other bigger guys and guards. Like, he just has that athleticism. But without him, I mean, you were running Kyle Arons and Matt Van Dyke out on a 6'9", fifth-year, maybe even a six-year guy who's stroking from the corner. I mean, there's nothing – the team's just not equipped to handle that. And then offensively, the biggest problem they have, again, as currently constructed, and this isn't going to change that much even with Bridges coming back, but they're forced to be a jump shooting team, and right now they don't have consistent jump shooters, so they're forced to shoot at volume, and that leads to inefficiency, and they don't have the bigs to crash the offensive glass and get the rebounds. It's really a team that if they're not shooting well, or as we'll get to with Oakland in a minute, unless you have Nick Ward basically going bananas in the paint, you're going to lose these type of games. And that's just sort of what happened. They were inefficient. Aaron Harris was bad. We either get good Aaron Harris or bad Aaron Harris.
Right.
And bad Aaron showed up that night.
Yeah, he finished 4 for 11.
Yep.
11 points.
And finished the game on the bench.
23 minutes. Finished on the bench and then didn't start against Oakland.
Yeah. So I think kind of, that was just it was the perfect storm. I wasn't really surprised to see them lose that game. I was disappointed. Obviously, you never want to lose to a team like Northeastern, especially at home. Although I got to say, their record, they beat Oakland the next night, and they're only, I think, 7-5 now. But I think I wrote something about it. Their losses coming into Michigan State were by their 5 losses by a combined 17 points.
Yeah, they lost to Boston U by 2, LIU Brooklyn by 4, Cornell by 3, Stony Brook by 2, Harvard by 6.
Right, and that's not exactly a murderer's row of teams.
No, I mean those
are a competitive team. That team is a couple buckets away from being a 9-1, 8-2 team coming to Michigan State. Doesn't make it any better. But it could be a tournament team.
I mean, funny thing about them, not only that, they also have 1, 2, 3, 4 wins by 3 points or fewer. So it's every game. If you're a Northeastern basketball fan, you probably have a weak heart right now.
Yeah, you've lost some hair over the first couple weeks of the season. But so that was a tough one. I was happy with the way they bounced back against Oakland again.
Yeah, right. Before we get to that,
sure,
we'll kind of hit these together. But another thing about that loss is after that loss, I think that's when you could say, okay, now it's time to start questioning the NCAA tournament because
sure.
They fell to 7-5 at the time, but 4 of the losses were to top 20 KenPom teams. Right. Those were really good teams.
None of them either.
Right, and more concerning than those losses were the wins. It was barely beating Oral Roberts and the other ones that I mentioned. Because I said at the beginning of the year, this is a team that'll play above its head and play below its head because it's very inconsistent based on its style, based on its youth and inexperience. And then you take out Miles Bridges, your best player, and that's going to just make that variance even higher. And another problem that came up in the Northeastern game was the free throw shooting. They went 61% on free throws for the game.
Their season average. That's their season average.
Yeah, their season average is 61.9%. That's 327th in the country out of 350. And not only that, but opponents are hitting 74%, which technically it's free throw defense, but it's not. I mean, you can't defend a free throw, but they're number 306 in free throw defense. It's a 13% difference between what MSU is making and what the opponent is making. So not only are you giving away points at the free throw line, it's twofold. You're just getting killed at the line, and it turns a lot of these games into close games when normally if MSU was an average free throw shooting team, and if opponents were hitting average against them, some of these wins would be a lot more comfortable. I do think that's something we're keeping in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
It's it's an inconsistent team, and especially when they struggle on offense, sometimes the way that they do it exasperates those free throw numbers even more. But that's a factor too, because Northeastern made 83%, and that's a 22% difference at the free throw line. And again, that's
the type of thing. There are so many.
That's your margin. That's your margin of error.
Right. This team is it's such a slim margin for error with the injuries in the youth, like you've alluded to already. But you throw in a bad free throw shooting team. We saw what it did to a really good Michigan State team just a couple of years. Well, not necessarily a really good team, but just a couple of years back, they had a really bad free throw shooting year. I think that might have been the Final Four team with Trice. That was a really bad free throw shooting team.
No, it was the 2014 team. Yeah, it was the 2014 team that no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Northeastern here. My bad.
I think it
was
the Trice.
Yep, the Final Four team, 338th in the country. Again, and opponents were number 314. So this is something like 4 years in a row or 3 out of 4 years, or 4 years in a row where MSU's free throw defense has been in the bottom 50 nationally for 4 straight years. And for 3 straight years, they've been or for 3 out of 4 years or something, like they've been bad at the line. So it's a lot of, like I said,
swing.
Right. It's a swing. It's a big swing.
Yeah, and you saw it on that Trice team. I mean, that team was a 7 seed, and they were a 7 seed because they lost games at the free throw line. And now this team doesn't have, at this point, it does not look like they have that same margin for error because that Trice team had Brandon Dawson, who was, I think he was leading rebounder in the Big Ten that year. You had Schilling, you had size. This team doesn't have that size, and that creates, offensive rebounds and margin for error. So that's gonna. Like you said, I really think you've been nailing it this season with it's just high variance. So
they can take Arizona to the end. They can take Duke pretty deep at Cameron. But, if they get home and they get a little lackadaisical and don't put a team away, and that happened in the Oakland game, to move on to that
putting a team away.
They, a couple times in the second half, could have put them away and didn't. It happened in the first half and helped Oakland cut it to a 1 possession before halftime. It happened in the second half. MSU went up double digits, I think, and there was a TV timeout, and Oakland cuts it down to I think 2 possessions maybe, and MSU came out with a 12-point win in the end, but 64.9% at the free throw line. It's and Oakland was 71%. But so I mean, those things matter. And and you mentioned the inconsistency. I mean, Aaron Harris is a senior. That's who Izzo leans on. He leans on his seniors to lead the team, and he can't trust Aaron Harris right now to play consistent. And as a result, you get Cassius Winston and Nick Ward and those guys starting because they're going into Big Ten play here, and Izzo still doesn't really have a rotation.
Yeah, it was nice to see them finally. I mean, one of the biggest and best development of this season so far has been Cassius Winston and how he has matured. I mean, this is his team now, I think. It's his team. He's going to run the show because Tum Tum played 11 minutes last night. I mean, that's a huge minutes drop from where he's been playing in the other parts of the non-con. I mean, he showed out in the Bahamas, as his homecoming. But since then, he's kind of regressed back to the mean of the Tum Tum that we're used to, just a complete offensive. I'll say liability, but it's almost more of just like a non-entity. Like he doesn't even. Very rarely is aggressive. I think he's a capable enough player to blow by people and get to the bucket and create, but he just never takes it upon himself. It doesn't seem like he has the confidence in his offensive game. Whereas Cassius Winston, man, he is going to be very special by the end of his career in East Lansing because he looks smooth. He looks the biggest difference from the beginning of the season to now, which is not surprising, but is that he is in control. He has always done. He was able to push on the fast break all season, but he's very confident in that half court now. He's confident in his shot. He made a couple of big threes last night. Only ended up with 9 points, but did have I think eight assists again. Yeah, he came
2 steals and a block and 3 turnovers.
Came into the game. I think after last night, it's something like 40 in his last 4 games. It's 40 plus assists and maybe it's his last 5, like 40 plus assists and like 6 or 7 turnovers. Like he doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He plays above his head as a freshman, and it is not hard. I tweeted this out during the game, but it's not difficult to see why Izzo was on him since he was a freshman at U of D. I mean, kid's a player.
Here's some numbers. 55.8 is his assist rate. That is number one. That is number 1 in the country. And he has a lower turnover rate than Nairn, and he actually has a higher steal rate. I know that's not the only thing on defense, and MSU's defense isn't prone to getting steals, but I mean, he is starting to, I think, really kind of take control of this team, and that's kind of what we said at the beginning of the year. We said, I think the freshmen are going to kind of start to take over as the season goes along, just because they're the best. They're the best players.
Yeah, those are the 4 best players on the team.
And when you can't trust I don't know if Nairn's a captain or not, but he's a junior. Nairn is sometimes, like you said, liability. Aaron Harris is all over the place sometimes. It's the most reliable guys are becoming Cassius Winston and Nick Ward, your true freshmen.
Yeah, Ward had a great game last night.
Yeah, let's talk about him. Let's talk about Nick Ward.
I mean,
he was the guy who came in with the least amount of. Do you say he came in with the least amount of
expectation,
hype, expectation?
Expectation.
I mean, I know Winston and Bridges obviously. I guess it'd be between him and Langford, but I think Ward. People saw Schilling, they saw Goins, they saw
Carter.
And you thought, okay, Ward's going to have time to develop, and yes, he doesn't have time to develop, and he's developing in front of our eyes. Here's a look at the numbers again. Number 31 in the country in offensive rebound rate, number 92 in defensive rebound rate, number 1 in fouls drawn per 40 minutes. He's only 55% at the free throw line, but he's drawing fouls. And,
he went like 11 for 17 last night, so he had a decent night.
And on a day in which MSU was not that great at the line, for him to go 11 for 17,
big deal.
I mean, Nairn went 0 for 2, Winston went 0 for 2. His body control, I tweeted this during the game. His body control around the basket is just incredible to see. It's the best I've seen from an MSU big man since probably Paul Davis. I mean, he is so confident down there. He's never, flailing up a shot. He's never getting brushed off by a little bit of contact. He's not getting the ball. Guys come in on him and he panics. He's just always under control. And even on the alley-oop to him that he missed with the one hand, but he's
real
composes himself. He composes himself and gets it right back. It's not, he's always in control and calm, and he's going to become something very, very special for MSU. And he's, again, a true freshman.
Yeah, and to your point, one of the things that really makes that so amazing is that he's in control of a body that's pretty brand new to him. I mean, one of the reasons I thought he was going to take longer to develop is because what you had seen from him, even really back at Moneyball, was a kid that he needed to lose some weight. He was just going to be big. You were worried about his conditioning, but these injuries in a way have almost been a blessing for him in that he's been forced to play, and it's helped him with his conditioning. He's managed to keep off just a ton of weight. I think they were talking about it kind of ad nauseum last night. They mentioned it like 3 times in a 4-minute stretch that he had lost like 30 pounds or something. But you're right. I mean, he reminds me in terms of soft hands around the rim. He's more athletic, but is like almost like a Derek Nix. Like Derek
Right.
Nix,
That was right. Derek, right.
You know what I mean? He was just able to, those little bunny hooks with both hands, was always kind of a force on the glass despite being, not the most athletic guy. I think Ward's definitely more athletic.
But Nick's developed into that. That was a senior by the time he kind of figured it out. I mean, when Nick started as a freshman, he didn't have that. He developed into that. Ward's already got it. And he's only a freshman.
I agree. I think Ward, I mean, it's crazy because honestly, I had the lowest expectations because of their position kind of, and like the how long it takes to grow into and mature into these roles,
especially for MSU. An MSU big man, it takes a long time for a big man to figure it out under Izzo. It took Payne several years. It took Paul Davis, it took him till he got there. Suton, Nix. It takes these guys time. Costello. Usually under Izzo, they a lot of times, Izzo gets on them hard, and sometimes they can't maybe take it. And just by watching games, I'm not at practice, but just by watching it, Ward always seems to be able to take that stuff. He's very conscious of everything and aware and confident of what's going on. And I think that's a big part of it because, again, big men under Izzo, it takes them a while.
Yeah.
For Ward, I mean, he's doing this by necessity. He's playing because he's all they got. But he's very much earned the start that he got last night and the starts he'll have going forward. And he's not gonna say he's the best player on the team because they have Bridges, but
I mean,
he's probably. I mean,
he's got an argument.
I'd say he's the most valuable. He's the guy that can at least afford to lose at this point because partially because of a big part because of the position and what they have left. But he's been in a season that's had their struggles. He's been he's a bright spot, and I think a huge bright spot in the coming years.
Yeah, and I think
I'm sorry. And he's playing center. He's an undersized center. I know he's got a long wingspan, but he's playing. A lot of times he's playing against guys that are bigger than him too.
Yeah, and he's got that ability to box out because he's just built so wide. He kind of plays up from his actual probably like 6'8" height. But I think just to get back to one thing real quick, I think having a freshman point guard and a freshman center be right now without Bridges the two best players on your team, it's a really big deal moving forward because these are not 1 year guys. I mean, I think you're talking 2-3 years for each of them. But just to have, because that was coming into this year, I figured Bridges and Langford would be the two that would kind of catch up quickly just because, when you're a wing, even Bridges really as a 3-4 kind of, you get the ball and you go. Like there's just a little less thinking that goes into those positions in the Izzo offense, whereas he asks a lot of his centers, like you said, demands a lot, and he asks a lot of his point guards. He puts a lot of pressure on those guys.
Of picks, a lot of setting screens, a lot of
tons of sets.
A lot of defending screens, and that's
very set-based set-based offense. They play a lot of one-on-one defense. They don't zone hardly ever. And he puts pressure on his guards to run a fast break. He likes to run and push on especially the secondary break. And to have those two be this young and be this ready to roll, heading into the Big Ten season, that's big. I mean, that's big for the direction of your program. That's big for this year. I mean, and then once Bridges comes back, I mean, you go from, kind of like a teeter-tottering team to you're instead of matching up with other teams as much, you're creating mismatch problems. And that's a big deal for a team that has a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, I think the non-conference schedule this year should get you really excited for next year's team and the year after.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time next year.
You expect Bridges to be gone, but the other guys you expect to be back and the class that they're working on.
Can I talk about one guy real quick that's worrying me?
What's that?
And that is Matt McQuaid.
Yes.
So I kind of mentioned, and I wrote this in the post-game wrap, but this team, it can't have basically. I think they're playing him right now. He's in a rut. I mean, I know he's had a couple big games, but he's supposed to be a dead-eye 3-ball shooter. I mean, that's his role.
He's 34% right now in the year.
Right, and he just doesn't bring a lot to the table. Otherwise, he's not a great defender. He's not a tremendous. He had a really bad fast break pass to Ward that he just completely sailed over his head.
He was the backup point guard basically.
I know.
Last year,
and that was just so.
That was tough. I mean, that was tough on him. That was
necessity. That was necessity. But he just doesn't. He's there for one reason, and right now he shoots the volume, but he's just not hitting. Last year he hit over 40%, like 40 point something, which is, listen, if you're hitting in the 40s, you're hitting it pretty good. Mm-hmm. But they're going to have a tough time playing him a ton going forward, especially in critical moments if he can't get right. Because, like I said, he's just really one-dimensional, and this team can't afford to have multiple guards that are not shooting efficiently. And when you look at him, you look at Harris, you look at Ellis, you look at, even Langford, you throw Langford in there, you need to have two of those guys going at a pretty efficient clip. And right now, McQuaid is, of the four, even under Ellis, who played,
Ellis is at 38% from 3.
Yeah, but Ellis, I would say in probably more limited minutes, did play a lot. Ellis took a lot of Langford's minutes last night, though.
Yeah, Ellis has only taken 7 2-pointers on the year. He's taken 30. He's taken 31 threes. So I mean, he basically is. He's basically
he's going to get it.
Right now.
he has those games where he just balls out, and you're like, man, this guy could be a really useful player. And then last night it was the perfect encapsulation of Alvin Ellis. He hit a couple big threes that were just beautiful, and then had two of the dumber turnovers you can really have, where he tried to do a fancy little drop pass to Nick Ward instead of, I mean, just finish.
Yeah,
just go up and get a foul, go to the rack, don't get fancy. And then he had another terrible, like where he just kind of fell down on the plate. I thought Izzo was just going to rip his head off, but the bottom line is that guard rotation between the four of them has to get figured out. And I think the ultimate answer will be Harris and Langford being your two constants, with the other two kind of being
probably
something off the bench. But yeah, I would keep an eye on how the minutes. That'll be one of the really interesting things for me moving forward, is how the minutes get distributed between those guards, because I think everywhere else is pretty. Once Bridges is back, is pretty well settled. But those two wing spots, that's where Izzo is probably having most of his frustration, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, Langford's shooting 46% on the year, 13 for 28.
Yeah.
Not a ton of shots, but
I wonder how healthy he is, honestly.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
Takes a while to come back.
Right, but you make the point about McQuaid. McQuaid 34%, Aaron Harris 38%. Like these are, if your guards aren't shooting, then you've got a problem. Also, McQuaid's only shooting 29% on twos.
Yeah, he's just not. He's in a rut.
Aaron Harris is at 51% on twos, so he's got some there. But I mean, McQuaid's there to make threes, and if he's not making threes, that's a problem. And they don't have the depth or the guys like last year, where if a guy's in a rut, you just play someone else because they don't have much else. Lessing, Matt Van Dyke, has been getting. He's doing what he can, but I think when your front court is made up of a walk-on, a former walk-on, and a true freshman, you're kind of just limited. There's not much you can do. I mean, MSU is 173 in offensive rebounding, 114 in defensive rebounding. So they're about average, maybe a little bit above average in some ways on the boards. But I mean, there's not much you can do.
Yeah, I don't know what you're supposed to do. Without Bridges. I mean, just look at the injuries, and it feels, you feel like, in a way, whenever you point to injuries, it sounds like a cop out, but it's so real. I mean, look at this depth chart, man.
Right. It matters in the context of a depth chart. If you
100%.
If you got nobody, no offense to Matt Van Dyke, but if Matt Van Dyke is starting basketball games, then the injuries are a factor.
Yeah, and it's just that they're so loaded. Like, the injuries are just so loaded to the front court. I mean, you had four coming into the season. You had four players, 6'7" or above, and three of them are hurt. I mean, I give a lot of respect to Matt Van Dyke, and if these injuries have to happen, I'm glad they happened early in the season, because he's not going to be able to hold his own against Thomas Bryant and Caleb Swanigan and Isaac Haas and those big fellas. That's not.
I mean, he's no Colby Wallenman either. But I mean that in a Colby Wallenman developed into a
we
service.
We can use Wallenman
right now. He didn't. He left early, didn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't he have another year to go be a doctor or something?
Yeah.
Get your priorities in it. Yeah, no.
Yeah. We could use another guy like that. He's doing his best. He does get up. I got to give him and Aaron's credit both. As the 6'5" white boys, you don't think they're going to be the ones jumping out of the gym, but those guys hold their own down there. I mean, they're doing everything they can. And hopefully he doesn't have to get called on too much here moving forward. I know Bridges was wearing the boot at the game last night, but they asked him about it.
Yeah.
That he was only wearing it so he didn't get stepped on.
Right.
Which, hey, I'm all for it, man. Keep that on wherever you could possibly get stepped on until it's fully healthy. But you got to think once he's healthy, Van Dyke's minutes probably get fairly limited. But he definitely deserves a pat on the back, man. He's done what he can.
They're doing what they can. Yeah, I'm looking at the kind of the Ken Pom profile for MSU right now, and I mentioned free throw shooting before. I will say they're not making a ton, but one thing MSU is doing that they haven't done in a while is get to the free throw line. They're number 147 in free throw rate in terms of getting to the line. But last year they were number 328. The year before they were 283. In 2014 they were 321. So you have to go back to 2013. They were 155. So it's been a few years since MSU has actually gotten to the line, and even though it is kind of a jump shooting team, I mentioned Nick Ward's fouls. He draws 10 fouls per 40 minutes. No one else on MSU is above 5. No one else. Next highest is 4.8. Aaron Harris. He draws 10 fouls per 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's a big function of
which is other than 3 other guys, it's a whole foul more per 40 than the number 4 guy. So like a big part of that's Ward, but I think that's also a positive. And MSU's not fouling really any more than normal. There were a ton of fouls in that Oakland game. It was
53.
Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. But
less than the last year, though. Do you remember the game at the Palace? There were like 100 or something.
But it's so in terms of fouling and getting fouled, MSU is doing pretty well in that, even if it's good up until you realize they're missing all their free throws and MSU's opponents are making all their free throws. But there's something you can build off of there, I guess.
Absolutely.
What? So
go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, moving forward, Big Ten season kicking off next week.
Yes, I was about to say. Also, MSU is number 1 in assist rate in terms of assists per field goal made, and they were number 1 in that last year. And so, despite losing all those guys, I think it's a good sign of It's a good sign, right? It's a good sign of developing chemistry. Like I said, Winston is again number 1 in the country in assist rate. So Ward and Winston
they're carrying the team right now, man.
They're pulling everybody up. So non-conference schedule is over. MSU finishes at 8-5. Coming in, you probably were thinking maybe a 10-3, a 9-4. But when you factor in the injuries, what do you think coming out of non-conference? How do you think overall they stack up, and how they look going into Big Ten?
Well, I think all things considered, between travel, injuries, freshmen, and everything, the loss to Northeastern is disappointing. There's no way around it, especially considering all of the other close wins against inferior opponents that they've had. It's a flawed team. At the end of the day, it's a flawed team. But there's a lot to build on. There's a lot of reason. And I get why people would look at the team and be like, oh man, are they even going to make the tournament? And it's certainly a valid concern.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. No, I still think they're a tournament team. I absolutely think they're a tournament team. I think they're not going, to me, it's hard to see them taking a step back. They have so much room for improvement, and it's really not crazy things that they need to improve to get significantly better. Listen, they're going to struggle against big teams all year. They're going to struggle against Indiana. They're going to struggle against Purdue. I mean, Michigan's got some length. They'll probably give them a hard time. And they're young, so they're going to be high variance, but there's a lot to like if you get a healthy Bridges back. I mean, and then if you can get the wing situation kind of figured out, just 2 of those guys going, and if you can turn this into an 8-man rotation where you bring your offensive liabilities kind of off the bench. If you're bringing Tum McQuaid, Goins, Arns off the bench, and your starting 5 is Winston, Langford, Harris, Bridges, and Ward, that starting 5 is going to be good enough to keep you in a lot of games against some teams that you probably shouldn't be in games with. But that bench might not be good enough to keep you in games against teams you should be beating by more, if that makes sense. I still think it's an 18-19 win team. They're going to struggle, but until they fall flat on their face and lose a couple more really bad ones, I guess I'm still holding out hope in Izzo and just the room for development with this roster.
So I've got mixed thoughts.
Yeah.
They're a flawed team, and a lot of those flaws are not going to change. They're not going to get any bigger. They are what they are. And so Ken Pom projects them 16-15, 8-10 in the Big Ten.
Well,
That's not going to get you in the tournament.
No.
I think we've said it before, but this next month of games is going to be absolutely huge for them, because there are going to be a lot of if you're going to try to find wins in the Big Ten schedule, this is where you got to get them. They start off with at Minnesota, home, who's actually pretty good this year, but at Minnesota, home against Northwestern, home against Rutgers, at Penn State, home against Minnesota, at Ohio State. That takes you into, after that is Indiana, Purdue, Michigan. So that's 6 games there where if you're MSU, I think anything worse than 4-2, then you're getting worried.
Yeah.
Then you're
11-8, and then you're in some trouble.
Then you're putting yourself in a hole, and it's like with the football team who had after Wisconsin, they had Indiana,
right,
Illinois, Maryland, those teams in there, Northwestern. And they lost all those, and they were never going to make up for that. So this next month is going to be huge, and we'll see when Miles Bridges gets back, but you presume for a chunk of these games are not going to have them, and that's not a good sign. But I do think it's a team that could go 6-0 in those games. I think it's a team that could go 2-4 in those games.
Yep.
It's going to kind of, you're flipping coins here, and you just kind of hope you get a string of heads if you're MSU, I think.
Yeah,
Ken Pom actually has them 4-2 in those games, with the losses to Minnesota and loss at Ohio State.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised if that's what happens. I mean, I think, did Northwestern lose tonight? They were struggling with.
They were down 10 at half last time.
To Houston Baptist or something.
Yeah, right when we started.
That's not good. Team. Yeah. I was doing a little bit of looking at Minnesota, and they don't. I really feel like this first game is.
I feel like they always start off with Minnesota. I know they don't, but I feel like they always play Minnesota within their first 3 games.
I agree with you, and it's always at the barn. It's never at home. A place I'd love to see a game, but it's always at the barn. I'm always worried someone's going to fly off that court and just break an arm or something.
Last year, it was the second Big Ten game was at Minnesota.
Yeah.
2015, they did not go to Minnesota. In 2014, it was they played Minnesota at home in early January.
Okay, well,
and 2013, they lost at Minnesota on New Year's Eve.
There you go.
2012, they didn't play till the end of the year. But yeah, that's a stretch there where it's always in that first. They always play Minnesota, and they're a difficult matchup a lot of times for MSU. And Ken Pom actually. Weird. Yeah, what day is it? We probably won't have a podcast we'll probably have a podcast after the Minnesota game. Yeah, so I mean, while we're looking at that, Ken Pom's got it as a 5-point Minnesota win, 34% chance for MSU. Minnesota comes into the game really good on the defensive side. They are a tall team. They're number 21 in average height. Not great offensively, not really great in anything offensively, but they've been pretty solid across the board on defense. So do not be surprised if MSU goes through some of those 5-minute lulls where they don't score a point or something like that. Minnesota's 11-1 right now. They play Arkansas State tomorrow. They'll win that. So they'll be 12-1 coming into the game with the win. With the loss to Florida State, but their best wins are Vanderbilt, Arkansas, UT Arlington. So they did not have a tough schedule like MSU. Obviously, their non-conference was ranked number 204. But so they've got a bit of an inflated record, but they're a big team, and they're good on the defensive side.
Yeah, I was just kind of browsing through their stats here. It looks like they go about 7 deep. And really only 2 of them are all that big. and I think it's Eric Curry is a pretty like 6'9", 6'10" guy.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, of the top guys that play in terms of minutes or possession, 6'6", 6'2", 6'8", 6'6", 6'5", 6'4", 6'9".
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
that 6'8", 6'9" that's going to give MSU trouble. I mean, really 1 through 4. Again, although I guess this is assuming Bridges isn't going to play. Although I read that he could play against Minnesota, but I will just assume he's not going to. 1 through 4, MSU doesn't really have that many size issues. I mean, it's really the center and really 1 through 3, I guess, without Bridges. So through the guards, that's troubling or not a big deal. But I think 4 and 5. Especially if Ward or Goins gets in foul trouble, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
Amir Coffey has been pretty good for them as a freshman, averaging like 12 points, really not shooting well from 3 though, only 20% from 3. Yikes! They don't do a lot on the offensive end, so this feels like one of those games that you just like cashing in on those easy transition buckets and not having inefficiency from your wings, and really everything we've talked about. You have
free throws. They're average at free throws, and they're decent at getting to the line. But that'll be a swing thing that MSU will need to win. One of those little factors.
Yeah, 1 or 2. I mean, you're on the road, and listen, even if you're only 8 and 5, it's still Michigan State coming into Minnesota. They get up for that. This is the Big Ten opener. It's a big deal. For both teams, but I can see how Minnesota's going to be hyped. This is the first time they've been really good in a couple of years. Patino's got them rolling a little bit, so yeah, that'll be an interesting one. I think because I really think if you can come out of this, I mean, again, it's like you said, coin flip. They did just lose to Northeastern at home, but if you can get this road win, I think on the back of the Oakland win. You're talking about, probably a relatively confident team coming home for 3 straight against teams they should beat. You can pull that off. You got Minnesota at home again, and then
if they can win, if they can beat Minnesota, there's a real decent chance they start off 4-0 in Big Ten play.
Yeah,
I think would be huge. A team like this, confidence is massive. Very much.
It's funny. There are some weird, and no one's going to like to hear this, but there are parallels between this and the football team.
I was going to say,
big time.
Every coin flip came up incorrect in football, and so far in basketball, it's been
pretty incorrect.
This is the last. I mean, it's been a just incredibly bad 2016 for MSU. Actually, we'll do a year in review next week, assuming we do one of these podcasts. If not, we'll do it the week after. But 2016 has been bad, and if they can finish with an upset win over Minnesota, I think MSU fans will have reason to feel a little optimistic. And if they lose as expected, it'll be the cap.
Yeah, just a crap storm. But I think they got a shot. Coming out of that would be really big. You're riding high, and then you kind of take them and you roll with the punches from there. But I feel like they should feel pretty decent coming out of that Oakland game. They had plenty of room for improvement, but they've responded well off the loss, I guess.
Yeah. Anything else MSU basketball wise you wanted to hit?
If Brian Bowen and Brandon McCoy are listening, I hope you're watching and just seeing the roles that are waiting for you in East Lansing. So, recruiting is going to heat up here for them soon too. Targets are obvious. We don't need to dive into that now, but I think we pretty much covered it. Hopefully, go get a win next Tuesday and have a nice upbeat podcast next week.
Okay, so we got some non-MSU related topics here to finish out. I'll give my thoughts second, but the Grayson Allen trip, tantrum, suspension. Some people got upset at my thoughts on Twitter, but I'll let you go first. And what are your thoughts on that?
So I just full disclosure, I didn't actually see what you put on Twitter. So I'm talking about this.
So you're not influenced here.
So I'm not. I think he deserved the suspension. I think what he did, it was pretty obvious that it was on purpose. I don't know if he wants to use the Draymond Green excuse of it's just the way my body goes. You can't tell me how I'm not supposed to do it. Whatever. I think because this is the third time he's done it in the past calendar year, and he didn't get punished for either of the first two, I think it's fitting that eventually things catch up to him. And I don't know that had he just done the kick and not had that absolutely, ridiculous temper tantrum on the sideline, that he would have gotten this stern of a punishment. I think he probably gets a game or two just as a, hey man, you've done this 3 times. We're gonna get you eventually. But that temper tantrum was just, that's unacceptable. I'm sure Coach K has echoed as much, but to me, you got to be able to control your emotions better than that. I know he's a young man and he's 20, 21 years old, but you got to keep it together, because you're not making yourself look good. You're not making your teammates look good. You're not making a program that the vast majority of college basketball fans already dislike. You're not helping that image. It's just a really bad look for him. Hopefully he can use this suspension, which I'm assuming will be probably 4 or 5 games. I didn't look at Duke's schedule, so I'm sure the first big game they play, he'll be back. But if they have North Carolina coming up in the next 4 games, I assume he'll be playing in that one. But yeah, I think he got his just desserts, or whatever the expression is.
Okay, so my first reaction when I saw it was that he's embracing the bad guy persona, and I was kind of on board with it. Like, he's just like, I'm just going to keep tripping dudes and upset people and,
Sure.
and just go with it. But then he throws the tantrum on the bench. Then he has that emotional talk with reporters and whatever. But then Coach K kind of half defends him, sort of, and it upsets people. And people got really upset. Like, there were all sorts of columns like Coach A has to step in and defend him. You got, I think, Seth Greenberg saying, he needs help. And I'm just like, can we just take a step back here and relax? Like, yeah, he should probably be suspended for that. It was kind of a dirty play. He keeps doing it. You got to suspend him. That's fine. But I felt that the reaction was just over the top of trying to posture and just, you have to make this statement and blah 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 blah. And there's I won't say the name, but there's a columnist who wrote he has to be suspended, Duke has to step in, something. And the same columnist, I decided to look it up, same columnist wrote a positive story about Marshall Henderson a few years back, and citing his time in jail, his probation being violated, his drug arrest, but he comes in early, he's the first guy in the room, and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, that's my first thought. So Marshall Henderson, he embraced the villain role, and people loved him for it. And he broke actual laws, and people were still like, oh, we like him. Grayson Allen's just out here tripping dudes Draymond style, and everybody's up in arms, like it's this big travesty. And I'm just like, we need to chill out a little bit. And Big Ten Geeks tweeted about Seth Greenberg saying he needs help, and speaking like the kid's got an alcohol problem, as opposed to him just kind of being a jackass in the court sometimes. The way Allen is responding to it, I think it shows immaturity for, he's a kid. These are kids, and, that's what happens. But I thought the reaction at the top, people were acting like he sucker punched a dude or something like that. Like, it was this big, huge, egregious thing. Like, he's just tripping a couple dudes. It's a 2-minute penalty in hockey. Like, I want him to embrace the heel role now. Like, that's what, that's Duke. It being Duke is a big part of this.
Huge part.
Right. And so, but Christian Laettner embraced the villain role, and he fed off of that.
Redick,
right. I mean, Duke's
even Gerald Henderson did.
Yeah. So, I think Allen needs to. I mean, I'm not going to say go out there and start tripping dudes, but and Duke's got some problems and whatever. But in terms of just for Grayson Allen, I'm okay with embracing a bad guy role because that makes everything more interesting. Nobody wants Duke to be. I mean, nobody wants Duke to be a bunch of nice guys. You want people want a reason to not like them, and that's what this is. But so embrace it. Don't try to say it's not this, it's not that, it's whatever. Say, just got caught up in the heat of the moment, whatever. So, yeah, he should be suspended. It's fine. We'll see what happens. But I just thought the reaction to it was a little like over the top. And Brian Snow, I think from Scout today said, "What's more dangerous, the trip or sliding under an airborne player to try to take a charge?"
Yeah, that's fair.
It's the guy trying to take a charge, you want to talk about dangerous plays, and you got guys who are coached to do that. And I thought that was an interesting comparison, just to put in context of, if he was kicking a dude, stepping on a dude, something. This was just a trick. I mean, he live from the one angle, it kind of looked like a kick, but from the other angle, it's pretty clear the guy got by him and he just sticks his leg out and holds it up to trip the guy. So.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, listen, I know tripping is kind of, it's definitely a bugaboo for basketball, but it's just because it's so obvious, it's such an obvious thing, and I agree with you. I don't really understand the outrage. I mean, a hard charge, an elbow to the face, that type of thing where you're actually really physically.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I know you can hurt a guy's ankle if he gets tripped, and don't get me wrong, I'm not endorsing it by any stretch.
Right. We're not saying I'm not
assault.
I'm not saying go trip dudes. It's fine.
No.
I'm just saying, it's not as bad as the reaction.
No, and I think the reaction wasn't to the foul. I think the reaction was to his little, temper tantrum.
That didn't help.
I thought he should have been suspended for that. I don't necessarily think that the kicking thing. I think he would have gotten a game because, like I said, it's the accumulation of multiple times, and eventually they're going to get you for something, even if it's just to save face as a league or as a university, and be like, oh yeah, we're taking care of it. But right. I think it's more for the just incredible lack of self-control on the bench. I do think you raise a valid point, though, coming out of this. And I think he's kind of done it before. But, I mean, at this point, dude, everybody hates you. Like, there's no – why not embrace it at that point? Use that hate to fuel you to be great. Like –
give into the dark side. We just saw Rogue One.
That's true. I did just see Rogue One. You should cave. Just cave, man. Cave to the dark side. I mean, why not? You got to know when you sign up to go to Duke that people are instantly going to have that, be like, oh, of course he went to Duke. Like, hey, and everybody, for the public's perspective, everybody likes hateable Duke more than like quietly competent Duke. Nobody enjoys quietly competent Duke. Like, I don't want that. I want somebody that I can openly root against. It's just more fun that way. Like, so I'm with you. I'll never be he's just the emotions and the childlike behavior too much for me personally, but it'd be fun to root against him and really be able to be like, oh man, that guy he whines all the time, but damn, he's good. Like I would, if I was him, I would give in for sure.
I mean, we want storylines. We want character. Like, I feel in today's kind of media climate, like everybody's a columnist and everybody wants to be the moral police and whatnot. And I'm not saying go out and do bad stuff, but understand that that's part of what makes it interesting. Like, you can say, you shouldn't do this without, burning someone at the stake or something. Grayson Allen should be suspended. Yeah, that's fine. But we move on. But like this whole overreaction, like it's an embarrassment.
Yeah, it was over the top.
Right. And sure. We need the characters. You need storylines. It makes everything interesting. You want fans rooting for and against stuff, and instead of trying to get incredibly outraged at everything and act like, just take it for what it is. And I think it's entertaining.
I agree.
So that's that. Bowl games. So Leonard Fournette last week said he was going to set out the bowl game Nobody batted an eye because he's been injured all year and missed a bunch of games anyway. Then Christian McCaffrey comes out and says he's going to sit out the Sun Bowl, wants to get ready for the NFL. And that brings in a flood of everything. And it was interesting in that the kind of media and former players were on opposite sides for the most part. A lot of the people in the media were like, that's fine. He's protecting himself. It's for the players, thinking about the players first, all that stuff. But a lot of former players are like, I can't believe this. Play with, be there with your team, be there with your brothers. Even Stanford players did come out and say, we support McCaffrey and everything. So where did you fall on this?
Well, I think the way you said it is a pretty good way of looking at it. Like, I think there's just two pretty distinct sides to it. One is as I know that if I was his teammate, I'd probably be upset. I mean, like, I get it, but at the same time, it's like that's my teammate. Like, I'm trying to go out and win a ball game. And, it wouldn't be great, but then again, if he's leaving, it's not like that's going to carry over to the next year or anything. So, if I was his teammate, I get it. I would understand him being upset. But I tend to fall on the other side of the media, and maybe it's just because I never really, played any significant.
You didn't play the game.
Yeah. But like, okay, I don't mind it at all, really, for either of these players, and for a couple different reasons. The first and most obvious to me being that they're both running backs. Mm-hmm. And that position, as anybody who watches the NFL knows, that shelf life is not long in the NFL now. And it never really was tremendously long, but especially in, running backs are a dime a dozen in the NFL nowadays, it seems like. And both of these kids could be really good difference makers at the next level. But, from Fournette's point of view, I've been banged up all year. I've only got so many hits left on me. His usage rate was crazy when he played. He was up near 25, 30 carries a game every game in the SEC. Like, how many more hits can you take before, the wheels stop spinning? And then for McCaffrey, his usage rate was crazy at Stanford. And those are going to be knocks against both of them coming into the NFL draft. And like, they're going to get asked about that. That's probably going to cause both of them to slip a little bit, if you ask me. But the combination of factors for them between health, between their position, and the fact that neither of them, I think it kind of gets lost on people a little bit maybe, but it's not like they're skipping out on the Rose Bowl or the college football playoff. I think if either of these guys, they're both self-respecting players. If they were playing in a serious bowl game, like a New Year's Six game, there's no chance in hell either of them would be sitting down, especially Fournette. Fournette shouldn't have played. Who was it against? Florida this year? When he never should have played in the game to begin with, wasn't supposed to play.
Yeah, he wasn't going to play, but then
played the game. I mean,
he played like the beginning. I don't know if he played a ton, but yeah.
And then there's six. They finished 6-6. They're playing. I don't even know what bowl game they're playing in. Like,
I don't know. LSU is like finished 7 or 8 wins. They're in the Citrus Bowl. But again, it's not. I guess that's better. But it's not a New Year's Six bowl.
I think if it was the Orange Bowl, if you're talking Sugar Bowl, college football playoff, Rose Bowl, these guys aren't going to sit out. This wouldn't be happening. I think it's really a convergence of the fact that they are both hopeful first rounders, have had some injury nicks, have had high usage rates, and they're not playing in big bowl games. It's a combination of all that. So I don't personally see anything wrong with it, but if I can understand how teammates or fans of the program would take a little bit of umbrage to it.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be a big trend.
No, I don't either.
I think there were, basically, you laid them out, several factors that played into this. McCaffrey was injured during the year too, and he's a guy who plays receiver, plays running back, returns punts, returns kicks, does a lot of stuff. And they're running backs. And Jalen Smith a year ago in the Fiesta, it was a Fiesta Bowl, tears his ACL, loses out on millions of dollars. Right. I know Jalen Smith tweeted that he would have, he wouldn't change it, and that's fine, but it's also not a knock against guys who wouldn't. There's nothing wrong with saying you would. There's nothing wrong with saying you wouldn't.
Right.
And they're meaningless. They're meaningless, not meaningless, but they're exhibition bowl games that don't have a whole lot on the line. So,
Right.
If there's some teammates who are upset, maybe they are, and they have the right to be. But if I'm McCaffrey, so what? I'm gone next year anyway. Yeah. I gave up. I gave everything. I gave absolutely everything I had to this team, and sometimes you got to do you. It's a business decision, and when coaches are leaving early to go to different schools all the time, there's no wrong reason for the players to do it. I think it's fine. It's fine that they did it. I think it's fine if players say they won't do it, like Myles Garrett. I think it's, but I don't think it's going to be a big trend.
No.
Shock Linwood at Baylor said he's not going to play in their bowl game. Well, Shock Linwood already got benched for attitude issues. He was getting 6 carries a game over the last month anyway. That's not going to make much of a difference. And both of these guys are probably top 20, top first-round picks who literally have millions on the line. These aren't fringe third-round guys, late-round guys. There is a bigger trend toward athletes kind of fighting for more rights and everything, and that's good, and I think that's fine. But I don't think this is going to be a big trend in terms of players skipping out on games. I think it's just happened to be 2 guys with similar but different reasons and situations that are not very repeatable. Very often. I'll tell you what, I'm surprised. Speaking of running backs, Nick Chubb is coming back to Georgia.
And Sony Michel.
After his knee injury, which I know Chubb wasn't rated a first-round guy like those guys, but I believe he was a mid-round guy, and apparently he decided to come back. So, sometimes players take risks, and it is what it is. And nothing wrong with either way. I don't think there's anything.
It's so individual. It's so individual. Like Chubb is a dude who, if he comes back and proves he's healthy, could increase. He could get his stock way back up. It makes more sense for him to go back. And some guys just don't want to leave after being juniors. I thought that Ezekiel Elliott's tweet was pretty hypocritical.
Well, then he kind of walked it back a little bit too.
Yeah, when I first saw that, he
tweeted he'd do anything to play another game with his buckets. Well, he left early. He announced he was leaving after the MSU game.
Yeah.
He did not take his time getting out of there.
No, I think that was probably a tweet he wishes he could pull back, because if you just clicked on it, it's all of the responses to it. They were all like, well, you did leave after your junior season. You could have come back for an entire year. I thought that was kind of funny. And just a little like really? You didn't really think that went through, did you? I have nothing against Zeke. Zeke's a hell of a player, and I think he obviously made the right decision. But I thought that was kind of funny.
So speaking of bowl games, this came on the heels of a annual debate the week prior that bowl games are meaningless. They're participation trophies. We shouldn't have so many bowls. Again, I'll let you go first on that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't really see the downside of having so many. I just don't really see the downside. I suppose it takes away from the luster of making a bowl game, but think about the benefit for the team. Benefit for the team is that they get a ton of extra practices. They get exposure for the program that they would never be able to, for a lot of them, that they just don't get otherwise. For a lot of these, the MAC schools, the Western Kentuckys, these teams just don't get to be on ESPN every single week. So to have that is enormous for them. The amount of money that they can make in ticket sales is huge, and it rewards the players. I guess some of these teams are 6-6, 7-5, so it's like a hooray participation trophy thing. But and then from just the selfish fan side, it's dude, why would I not want to watch more football? I realize that they're not great teams and great games, but why would you want less football as a fan? Like if you don't want it, if you don't like it, just don't watch. It doesn't matter. It's not going to impact your life any differently if it doesn't. And if you think, I understand that there's like the line of, does it take away from the importance of the upper bowls? And it's like, no, I don't think so at all. I mean, if you think that teams don't realize the difference between like the Pinstripe Bowl and the friggin' Rose Bowl or something like that, then you're nuts. You know, teams know when they just make a bowl just to make a bowl, and when you make one that's really important, I don't think it matters that you Slayer Bowl the year before. You know, I don't think there's any correspondence between the two. So no, I don't know if I'm even making sense. I'm sort of rambling here, but I see no problem with it. More football, the better, in my opinion, and I don't think it does anything but benefit the schools too.
A few years back, I was on the too many bowl games participation trophy. It's pointless, stupid, meaningless side, and I get that as an initial reaction. Like it's just just a snap reaction,
right?
First thought, but then you think about it. And Michael Felder from Bleacher Report, at In the Bleachers on Twitter, he's a
great follow.
He's a former North Carolina player, and a few years back he made a comment on Twitter about the bowl game or bowl games he went to was his favorite moment as a player because it was a free trip. They got to do some cool things, and it was one of his greatest favorite moments. And that kind of opened my eyes to, okay, this isn't like about me here. And
right.
Players have a great time on these trips. They get a free vacation. And in a sport where players probably at this point should be paid, but they're not, there's so much money involved now compared to 10 years ago. Why would you not want to give these players a free vacation and some free swag? Like why would you be against it? And it's not a participation trophy. A participation trophy would be getting one of those rings, like when you finish 6 and 6 or something like that. I don't even think participation trophy is a big deal, but that's a topic for another day. But
right.
No, what a bowl game is you get up to 15 more practices plus work, all for the opportunity to compete again and play for a win. You're playing for a trophy. You don't get the trophy for getting to a bowl game.
Right.
Like you're getting a lot more hard work. You're getting more out of compete. That's like the complete opposite of a participation trophy. And so, no, I'm covering the Armed Forces Bowl for the Dallas Morning News here on Friday, and I talked to some of the coaches and players today, and coaches just talking about, they spent the week doing community service around the area, and for the Navy players who are, are going to be going into the service afterward. I mean, the bowl trips are really fun for them because you get to go see different things and do different things, and then like you said, if you don't want to watch it, then don't. The Las Vegas Bowl had a higher TV rating than North Carolina, Kentucky basketball. There's nothing else going on really right now. Why would you not want more football?
Right.
I'm okay.
It's America's favorite sport.
I would be okay with every team going to a bowl game. It's not going to happen, but I don't care. Why? What is the downside to it? You don't think the team that's 5-7 realizes they only got into a bowl game on a technicality? Like
right.
They know that. They're not stupid. And so, but they also know it's, you get something a little bit in a sport where the players get less than any other sport in this country. So
it just means something different to every program. I mean, like just because think about D'Antonio's first year. They went 7-5 and they made a bowl game, and it was a huge deal. You want to complain about teams that are 6-6, 7-5 getting in. What was it? They were the year they played Texas Tech, weren't they 5-6?
6-6.
They won their last game. Well, right, but they were 5-6 heading into the last week, right?
Yeah.
Against Penn State.
No. They were 6-5 going into that game.
Oh, okay.
And they lost to Penn State.
Well, still,
yeah.
I mean, think about a 5-6 team though that wins that last game. It's like, yes, we got bowl eligible. That means something. It's a huge step for a lot of programs.
You're still fighting for something.
Yeah, it means a lot. I think it's the, like you said, something we can talk about another time. The overarching participation. People don't believe in the participation trophy, but I think when you take a step back, it's like it's really simple.
It's not a participation trophy.
It's first of all, it's not that. Second of all, why would you complain about more football? Like, why? I don't understand.
Why would you complain about
what's the downside?
Why would you be upset about more games to watch? Why would you be upset about players getting some stuff in a sport where they don't get much? Yeah, what's the problem? What's the problem?
Yeah,
who cares?
I'm with you.
It's like we just have to react to everything these days.
Right.
Last couple things here. Your favorite Christmas movie?
Oof, that's tough. I'd probably say Home Alone, honestly, and that's a Christmas movie. I know some people don't want to think of it as a Christmas movie because it's not.
How about this? How about your favorite Christmas themed movie, like where Christmas is the story?
Oh man, Elf. Does that count?
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah, Elf for sure. I've seen the theory, but it was a Barstool thing. But they were talking about.
Wait, say that again. You cut out for a second.
Oh, I saw this thing. It's like a theory that was on like Barstool Sports where they're saying that Elf is the prequel to Step Brothers. And they show because it's the same mom, it's the same actress, and then they make like a couple of quotes where you could completely misinterpret how they might be connected. If you haven't checked, I thought that was pretty good. But Elf, I think, would probably be my favorite one. If Home Alone counted, I'd say Home Alone.
Okay, mine is Jingle All the Way.
The Arnold
and Sinbad and the kid who ended up playing Anakin Skywalker. I love it every time. Sinbad is hilarious in that movie, and the Turbo Man doll, and it's ridiculous, but it's like it's funny, and I watch it every year, and I will do it.
That's a good one.
And then my number 2 is the Santa Claus with Tim Allen, where he ends up becoming. He turns into Santa basically. I like that one. I haven't seen that one in a while, but I always like that one. And lastly, you mentioned we talked about it off air. So Rogue One. We're not going to talk any spoilers here, but we both saw it. We both loved it. My ranking of the Star Wars movies. I tweeted it after I saw Rogue One last weekend, and I knew it would upset a lot of people, and it upset a lot of people. So I'll give you mine, then you give me yours. We can explain it a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up. So I want to make sure I got this right. I had, in order, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Phantom Menace, Force Awakens, I think A New Hope, and Attack of the Clones. If you take out Sith at the top, I think most people would find it reasonable, but that said a lot of. What is yours?
Man, I don't even know. I'd say probably my favorite. Honestly, it's hard for me to even decide. I'd say Empire Strikes Back was probably my favorite one. It just had so much like
that's most people's number one, and I get it. I mean, I have it 4, but I still love it. I mean, I just that's
a good disclaimer,
right? Of the previous, I mean, I like them all. I watch them all. I don't not like any of them.
Clone Wars was no. I think the only I'll give you the top and the bottom. I think Clone Wars was number 2, like bottom for me.
Everybody has Empire 1 and Clones last, which is I kind
of liked the first. I kind of liked the very first one too.
A New Hope?
Everything. Yeah, A New Hope was great. I mean, like it was kind of boring to start.
That's the thing.
The entire development, like, but number 2 is the best. Number 2's got some super iconic moments in it. You have what Hoth.
You're talking Empire. Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah. Empire. Empire is that's got the most iconic moments. I gotta say though, Rogue One was right up there, man. That in terms of like had some big twists in it. I won't
It was a
reveal
little
anything here.
right.
but
It was a little kind of gritty. It was
pretty gritty.
not like very. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not kid friendly, but it was not kid friendly compared to the other.
Yeah, it had its moments of non-kid friendliness, that's for sure. But I would generally say I got to say that. What was you said your number one is what
Revenge of the
episode 3?
Episode 3, yes.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with you too much there. I'd put that up pretty high. I thought the end battle scene alone between
it's really
Anakin and Obi-Wan is, I mean, that's everything you could ask for in a Star Wars battle.
I think I like that for a lot of the same reasons people like Empire, and that a part of it is the good guys don't win at the end, and
true.
And the lightsaber fight plays a big role in my rankings because it's always kind of an iconic moment.
And it's like a half an hour long, which is amazing.
Right, and like that's probably my biggest down vote on Empire is that the lightsaber fight's not that good compared to Jedi. The lightsaber fight in Jedi is when Luke wins is pretty good. I think that's probably what puts it over for me. So I keep interrupting you, but you've got Empire
1,
Empire.
Attack of the Clones. Dude, I don't even know if I can go through them 1 through 7, honestly. I'll
1 through 8. We got 8.
8. Oh my God. Yeah, wow. I put Empire 1. Man, I'd have to look. I don't even know. I can't answer this. You put me on the spot here. I need to go through and I'll tweet out my 8. So if you're listening, keep an eye out for that.
What are you on Twitter again?
What's that? Oh, Twitter, AC Smith 06. So keep an eye out for that. Because I'll come up with something. I just got out of Rogue One like an hour before we recorded this, so I'm still.
So it's still fresh. It was. I liked it. It was a little different.
Great.
It was about kind of the details of the soldiers and I want to
pull it together really well. It's like one of the classic. It's about one of the classic unanswered questions. If you're a huge Star Wars fan, and they brought it to life, and I thought they did a really good job.
Yeah, and the thing with the New Hope is that. I don't not like it. I think it's very 1977-y for me.
Oh yeah, big time.
If it was made to, I'm not talking CGI. I'm just talking story depth. Like there's the acting and everything. It's not. It's like watching a hockey game from the 70s compared to a hockey game now. It's just everything's just crisper nowadays, I think, and just terms of the whole process. So that's just part of time. If A New Hope was made today, I think it'd be totally different. I just think it's very old-fashioned, which I know is part of the nostalgia, but here's the other thing that upsets people. I actually like the prequel trilogy more for a lot of those reasons I just said, along with I'm a guy who likes the big picture stuff. I love that Phantom Menace taught us about the Senate and how the government.
Oh my God!
And then you have the war that goes across the whole country. I'm a big picture guy more than individual characters. So personally, and that's totally fine that 99% of people don't.
Yeah.
And the whole Jedi Order thing, like it brought in a lot of context. Like in A New Hope, you only know this little band of rebels and the Death Star. There's a scene in A New Hope, which is the most interesting part to me, when they first get in the Death Star and they say the Imperial Senate has been disbanded by the Emperor, the local government territories, because everybody would be scared of the Death Star. That line means nothing, but in the greater context, it does. And I think the greater context and the big picture of how, I want to know how the galaxy works.
You're wondering how many galactic votes each member of the Senate has, their electoral college looks like.
How do they determine more than just here's the Emperor? What does the Emperor do? We only see him on the Death Star. What is his day to day?
Was he governor? Was he run his local?
in all sorts of.
He was a mayor at one point.
In all sorts of TV shows too, or superhero movies or anything. A big part of me is I want to know. Okay, what's it like? We always get here's the story of what's going on here with these people, but I'm always thinking maybe it's because I'm in media and journalism and I like I like the context of the world in relation to this little story that we're getting. So that's why I like the prequel trilogy. take out Jar Jar Binks, and I think a lot of people like Phantom Menace.
Yeah, that's a pretty big.
I mean, it's a good lightsaber fight. It's good actors, good acting. The story's good. It's a smaller story with a big picture context. But I know Jar Jar brings it all down for everybody.
Didn't they try to? They tried to. I think if you could have done better than Hayden Christensen too. Well, he wasn't in that one. He was.
Here's the thing on that. He's a bad actor, and
he's a bad actor.
That hurt episode 2 because you never really felt like he believed what he was saying.
Right.
But then I think in episode 3, the bad acting helped because he was misguided and brainwashed and spewing, not misinformation, but he was trying, like, his bad acting came across as his character was trying to convince himself of the things he was saying.
All right, I'll buy that.
I think the bad acting worked because he's on the wrong side. We know he's on the wrong side. He's trying to convince himself he's on the right side. He's not fully there. And so in that sense, I think the bad acting actually helped. I'm not going to say he's a good actor because he's not, but it really hurt Clones. That's why I had it at the end. But I think it actually helps in Sith because he's confused. He doesn't know what's going on. He's trying to think he's doing the right thing. And it comes across in the bad acting. I don't think he did that on purpose. So I will defend Hayden Christensen being.
Now, I want to. Okay. They didn't. Let's see. Hold on. So I have one of the better what ifs is that Leonardo DiCaprio was eyed to play Anakin Skywalker. I thought this was a rumor, and then I just looked it up. Now, it's true. George Lucas turned him down. Now, what if he had been in Clones and Sith? How far up did those shoot on the everyman's list?
This is late 90s. This is little past Titanic.
Yeah,
Leo. So
this is mid 20s.
If you put current Leo in there, I think it'd be great. I don't know how younger Leo though.
I mean, he was probably in his early 20s, maybe.
So I mean, it's possible. I mean, I'm sure most people would because most people hate Hayden Christensen.
It would age well.
Yeah, I think.
Well. And he had a killer beard, so maybe he could have grown a killer beard back then, although he was in his 20s. But who knows?
Yeah, so I'm curious what future. I know they got episode 8 coming.
Can't wait.
I know they got. I'm excited to see where it goes because I think my expectations were too high for Force Awakens because everybody is like, "Oh, this is the greatest movie. Star Wars is back. It's been forever. We're going." And so I go in with too high of expectations.
Yeah. And
it didn't meet them, and so I had a sour taste in my mouth. I went and saw it a second time and a third time, and I liked it the more I saw it. I saw more of the story, but it's the complete same movie as A New Hope, just with different characters. So yeah. I think I had it low on my list, but I think it will change with the context of what follows and what it leads to. If it leads to some completely different story that ties back into 7, I think I'll look back on it more. But right now it just feels like a New Hope redux, and I guess I did have it ahead of New Hope. But so I'm curious. I am excited to see where it goes, obviously. But I was surprised at the reaction. Well, and then there's the Hot Solo movie coming out. So
right.
A lot more coming, which is not a bad thing. Nothing wrong with more bowl games. Nothing wrong with more Star Wars movies.
If there's one thing you take away from this podcast, it's that.
And tweet me how much you hated my list. I got a lot of those on for last Friday night. I'm expecting a lot more after this podcast. If you listened all the way through, you're probably regretting it. Just
I salute
based on that, based on what I said. But I gave my reason. I gave my reasoning. I'm a guy who likes apparently a lot of bad movies. It's a big thing on Twitter when I let people know I'm about to review a movie and probably tell you I like it when most people don't. But it's easier to explain it on here than it is on Twitter. But I've given you the context of why I ordered the Star Wars movies the way I did, why I like the prequel more. Not that the other stuff's bad. I like it all. I'm looking forward to it all. I watched A New Hope like 2 days ago. I watch these all the time when I have some time and I'm doing work. So All right.
Love it.
We did this for an hour and a half because this is
Yeah.
the Christmas edition.
Yeah.
Listen to this Christmas morning with your family. They
Yes,
will love
please
it.
do.
Anything else you want to?
No, man. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Hope everyone is enjoying the time. And yeah, hopefully next time we report in, we'll be talking about another Spartan W.
So yeah, we'll try to get next week, depending on everything that happens. But thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you later, and have a good night.